It is Throwback Thursday, and that means it's time to dive into our vast CBC archives. Today, BC is home to over 200 breweries. But decades ago, Canada's beer industry was dominated by the giants, Carling O'Keefe, Labatt and Molson. But with many tired of frequent strikes at the big three, the landscape started changing in 1982 when the first microbrewery emerged. Today, we revisit a story from 1989 and look at the challenges the pioneers of the craft beer industry faced back then.
Here in the heart of Vancouver's East Side Warehouse District, the Shaftesbury Brewing Company is pumping out 600 kegs of beer a month. One look, and you know this isn't Labatt's or Molson's.
Myself and my partner Tim thought it was a pretty good idea. We're both beer drinkers, no doubt about that. We felt we could probably make a few dollars at it if we played the cards right.
It's been 2 years since Beaton and his partner set up shop. After getting startup money from the British Columbia Enterprise Corporation, they joined the ranks of the growing cottage brewing industry. And with a staff of only 6, Beaton does everything from brewing the beer to balancing the books.
I'm certainly no genius. I'm just a regular guy off the street. I think we just had a fair bit of smarts, and we just had the guts, I think, to go out and give it a try.
The microbrewing process is different from mass-produced beer. It's aged twice as long and has a heavier, fuller taste because of a higher proportion of malt. There is also no pasteurization process, which means a shorter shelf life. All of this, combined with a very tight market, means it's hard to make a buck at microbrewing. There are those in the industry who say that the microbreweries are really doomed and that only 1 or 2 of the larger ones can really survive.
I think, unfortunately, there has been a few that have failed in the past. What we did differently, I think, than the others is we put a priority on quality control. Instead of just trying to crank out beer, we decided we're going to make a great product. We don't have to sell a lot of beer. As long as we sell a good amount and it's good product, we will stay in business.
But not every microbrewery is a success story. This used to be the home of the Canadian Heritage Brewing Company in Steveston. Production was halted last month when the company couldn't pay off a $200,000 bank loan. Canadian Heritage is now up for sale. Industry insiders say lack of money is usually the reason microbreweries fail. Nobody knows this better than Mitchell Taylor, the founder of BC's oldest cottage brewery, the Granville Island Brewing Company.
We lost money every year. It's very difficult to continue producing a premium beer using all expensive ingredients and low unit cost or low volumes. We have been able to maintain the quality, and the only thing we haven't been able to do is make money. Now, I think we can change that.
After losing money for 5 years, Granville Island was taken over by the International Potter Distilling Corporation last March. Taylor's hoping that Potter's distribution network will finally turn Granville Island into a moneymaker. And Taylor's advice for budding beer makers?
Well, that's a very easy question to answer. You have lots of money. Think of all you need and then double or triple it, and you still probably need more.
Microbreweries may just be a blip in the national beer market, but even though beer drinking is declining in Canada, cottage breweries are selling 6 times the suds they were 5 years ago. Elliot Schiff, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, to talk about what the craft beer industry looks like in BC, now we're joined by Joe Wiebe, beer expert and author of Craft Beer Revolution, The Insider's Guide to BC Breweries. Joe, thanks for being here. In that story we just saw from 1989, it was mentioned beer consumption was dropping. Do you think that still rings true?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, lots and lots of breweries have opened since then in BC, so obviously people still like to drink beer. I've heard in recent years, since the pandemic and since a lot of health news came out the last couple of years about alcohol consumption, that breweries are noticing a decrease in consumption rates among their customers and are adjusting their tactics, brewing non-alcoholic beers and things like that. But certainly lots and lots of people still love drinking great, craft beer from BC producers, for sure.
What do you think fueled the success before we saw some of the challenges with the pandemic of the beer industry here, particularly the micro beers, the independent operators?
Well, there's so many factors. There's so much creativity among the breweries, the amazing styles of beer they come up with, the quality of the products, and the tasting rooms, like a lot of the breweries that opened in the last decade have benefited from these tasting rooms as their main focus, right? And that's a rule change that happened in about 12 years ago. That if you look back at that clip, those breweries back then didn't have that opportunity to have a tasting room where they could sell their own beer by the glass and things like that. And that's really, essentially the main thing that fueled the huge boom in new breweries that has happened over the last dozen years or so, for sure.
And yet we've also seen a number of local breweries closing down or being sold for all sorts of reasons, be it high rent, be it challenges from the pandemic. What other challenges are craft brewers in BC facing right now?
Yeah, it's a tough market right now for sure, with with a combination of the economic challenges, the downturn, the fact that we all face it in our household budgets. Imagine what breweries are facing as inflation increases the cost of their ingredients and the cost of labor and all the rest of it, combined with people maybe being a little more penny pinching, a little more cost conscious, so maybe not necessarily spending as much on luxury items like a quality craft beer. So breweries are having to deal with they can't necessarily raise their prices to pay for the cost of the ingredients and the rest of it, but they have to figure out a way to make it work still. So lots of breweries are still doing that and are still really working hard with the local communities and staying successful for sure.
And lastly, we appreciate your time. Where do you see the industry heading in the future, if you could crystal ball it?
Well, it's going to take a little while to work through this time right now. It's a little challenging, I think, with the way the economy is and so on. But there's been stability in the industry for a long time. The growth curve has been pretty constant for the last 30, 40 years. So I think it's going to continue to grow and to prosper. I think a lot of people really love their quality BC craft beer and are still happy and look for those products on local shelves and at breweries in their neighborhoods and towns and so on.
Joe Wiebe, beer expert and author of Craft Beer Revolution, The Insider's Guide to BC Breweries. Thanks for your time and your expertise.
Cheers. Thank you.